There. Over to you, Darryl.
Good morning. Well, I'll come back to that. Whenever I do this, I'm reminded of the observation that online meetings are like high-tech seances. I sense a presence. Darryl, are you there? Can you hear me? Anyway, I trust that we have now established a strong and stable connection. My brother-in-law's favorite quote from David Copperfield is, "You'll find us rough, but you will find us ready." And I'm sure Elizabeth feels a little bit like I do in this sense that regardless of how hard we've worked to try to prepare for today, yes, there are still some rough edges, so please do bear with us. So I've longed for this day since announcing the FOSIL group in a presentation at the Lilac conference in 2019, and I'm overjoyed to be in such fine company. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Is that good?
Yeah, I can still, it needs to be in play mode.
Oh, sorry, yes. Yeah. And the seance continues. Right. This is actually the title slide from that Lilac conference in 2019, where I announced the launch of the FOSIL group. If you look very closely, I developed that presentation with David Harrow, who was then academic deputy head at Oakham School. And if you look at the program, you will see that David, Faye, and Nick are going to be doing the last practical presentation at the end of today. And I'm very, very excited about seeing and hearing what is going on at AKS Lytham, where he is now headmaster. So apart from the historical significance of this slide, the title slide encapsulates much, if not all, of what we're going to be exploring from various different perspectives today. That picture in the top right-hand corner of Jenny, Ruben, and me, along with a genuine Edinburgh turtle and Commodore 64, is from yesterday morning. And the reason why I've included that is because the three of us have had the privilege of meeting many of you over a number of years, most notably at the IASL 2019 conference in Dubrovnik and the IASL 2023 conference in Rome. And I know that we're being joined today by colleagues and friends from Croatia and Italy. So particularly welcome to you and all of those people who we have met and spent time with. The second reason for including that is because some of you have been asking, because you've met us, have been asking how Ruben is. And as you can see, he's grown quite a lot, even since the conference in Rome. And we're very, very proud of him, and quite tall for his age, given that he's still got 6 months to go before he turns 12. So thank you for being here today, especially those of you in other time zones whose sacrifice of time is greater than most, which makes it accurate to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. Thank you especially to those dear colleagues who are sharing with us today, without whom we would not be here, and especially there to Elizabeth, who has gone to an extraordinary amount of effort on the technical side to make today possible, and for Jenny, who is assisting her from the side. I also would like to say that we, and certainly I, would not be here without Jenny, who, as many of you will know, was an exceptional classroom teacher, but who, in my opinion, is an even more exceptional teacher librarian. And much of the foundational work on the FOSIL Group website was done by her. I would also like to thank the UK School Library Association, who have supported the work of the FOSIL Group through the FOSIL Group website since its foundation in 2019. And then I have just received this morning and would like to share these best wishes for today from Dr. Louisa Marquardt, Professor at Roma Tre University and Chair of the IFLA School Library Section, who joins us online today. And she writes, on behalf of the IFLA School Library Section, I'm presenting our warmest congratulations for this interesting and timely professional development opportunity. Please accept our best wishes for a very successful symposium and very fruitful outcomes, and extend our gratitude to all of the sponsors, stakeholders, and collaborators who have made this valuable professional development opportunity possible. So thank you very much, Louisa, and colleagues on the IFLA Standing Committee for School Libraries. So just before we get into the presentation more properly, I think most significantly today, perhaps, in terms of thanks, we would not be here today except for a principal of a school who understood that a fully human education required the library to be a unique kind of learning space, and the school librarian to be a unique kind of teacher. So when by chance I wandered out of the classroom and into the library, Richard Blake, the principal, and Jean Warwick, the librarian, at the school where I was employed to share the job with Jean, created the conditions in which I could ask, and still continue to ask, what kind of learning place is the library and what kind of teacher is the librarian? They created an enabling inquiry environment for their students, including me, as I and we strive to do for ours. The earliest reference that I have to FOSIL is from 2010, which means that 2025 marks 15 years of thoughtful development of FOSIL, and since 2020 in weekly discussion with Barbara Stripling, whose work is foundational to FOSIL. This brings me to the first major development, FOSIL development, which is the book that Barbara and I have been contracted to write for Bloomsbury Libraries Unlimited, titled Teaching Inquiry as Conversation, Bringing Wonder to Life. This book, which we will finish by the end of August, enables us to draw our work together more closely and to develop it more fully. So, with the benefit of 15 years of hindsight, insight, and foresight, what is FOSIL, bearing in mind that we understand inquiry to be a stance of wonder and puzzlement that leads to a dynamic process of coming to know and understand the world and ourselves in it, and that as the basis for responsible participation in community. As an aside here, I have answered the following questions more fully, but I will make that available separately with the presentation along with the recordings. So firstly, FOSIL is an evolving response to the question, what is school for? Secondly, FOSIL is an evolving response to the question, how does school enable a fully human awakening in a coherent way? And thirdly then, FOSIL is an evolving community of inquiry formed in response to the question, what in my specific educational context does inquiry as a method of instruction and an environment for formalized learning look like? My response to this question, FOSIL, led eventually to the formation of the FOSIL Group in 2019, which is a shared approach to this educational imperative and is what brings us together today. The response to this question, however, is broader than FOSIL, as we have already seen today, particularly through Diane's wonderful introduction to get things going this morning. And as we've seen from Lee and Joe in Australia. So this brings me to the second major fossil development, which is the foundation of the school-based Institute for the Advancement of Inquiry in PK to 12 education. So PK to 12 education is really just from the very beginning of school to the end of school. So the purpose of the Institute is to initiate and support efforts, both formal and informal, that foster the development of school-age children as engaged and empowered inquirers. This both enables them to fulfill their deepest potentiality as human beings in the world, and it strengthens the liberal democratic fabric of society. So the Institute for the Advancement of Inquiry really is a logical development of the FOSIL group, because as I've said, we have recognized that interest in these pressing questions that we have to be able to answer for the sake of our children is bigger than a single model. And the Institute really is a first step towards enabling colleagues who are working towards this from wherever and at whatever pace to work together more closely. So at this point, what I'd like to do is just start handing over to the other people on the program. And in doing so, it's absolutely extraordinary that even as we announce the launch of the Institute for the Advancement of Inquiry today, that we have widespread support for the proposed work of the Institute already. So just to mention that the Faculty of Education at the University of Alberta, and particularly there through the efforts of Jennifer Branch, who would have been with us this morning if she were able to speak with Diane. I'm also very indebted to colleagues at the University of Zagreb, and we have an endorsement from the Chair of Librarianship Studies, in addition to the Dean of the Faculty of Education at University of Alberta, Melissa Jacobs, Director of Library Services at New York City Public Schools. The reason why that endorsement is particularly significant is that is where Barbara Stripling's model became foundational to the New York City Information Fluency Continuum in 2009, if my memory serves me correctly. And then the endorsement from Ginger Thibault at the School Library Systems Association of New York State. The New York City Information Fluency Continuum was adopted and endorsed by the School Library Systems Association of New York State in 2012 and became the Empire State Information Fluency Continuum. And it's really that extraordinary work that FOSIL is based on and continues to evolve alongside. And then I'm delighted to announce that even as we were preparing for the symposium today, that I was contacted by Dr. David Lurcher from the San Jose State University School of Information about endorsing the Institute, and also very excitingly to make possible collaboration with a brand new journal focusing on the school library commons concept that they've launched called the Learning Hub. So I will provide more details of this as we go along. So this is where the stars of today's presentation really come to the fore. And what I'm going to speak about is the naming of the Institute. But before I do that, the the naming of the institute and the logo for the institute was developed by a highly talented student at Blanchelande College as part of an extended inquiry. And Jenny oversees the extended and higher project qualifications that we offer at Blanchelande. Lara was an EPQ student, and I'd just quickly like to ask Jenny just to say very briefly what the EPQ is for people who may be unfamiliar with it, and then I will explain the brief that I gave to Lara, and then I'm going to be absolutely delighted for Lara to talk about how she interpreted that brief.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I coordinate the EPQ qualification here, but the extended project qualification is the most amazing inquiry-based qualification, which is at A-level standard. So this is our school-leaving qualification here in the UK. It runs for a year, and students can investigate anything that is important to them. The only two restrictions are that it must be research-based, so it can't be something they just know about already, and it can't be too close to their A-level subjects. So it needs to develop and extend things that they already know beyond the bounds of the A-level syllabus. There are two possible outcomes. They can either write a 5,000-word research report, which can be very diverse, can be about anything. Our students have chosen topics that are really diverse, such as Middle Eastern politics or the economics of computer games, anything that interests them. Or they can make an artifact. And an artifact is any real-world outcome. So it could be a work of art or an event or a series of lessons. I've got one student this year who's producing a garden for the school as his artifact. And all of these are based on research, and they need to write up a research report that shows the inquiry step process that they've gone through in order to produce this artifact. In this case, I knew that Lara was a very talented artist and designer, and I knew that Darryl needed a logo for the institute. So I introduced him to her as a potential client, and that's where this project started.
Thank you. So for Lara's work towards her EPQ, it was important for her to approach me as a client. So I provided her with a design brief. And that design brief was actually a very complex design brief. And I'll just point out some of the main things that I raised with Lara and asked her to go away and reflect on, and then interpret as a logo for the institute. So what I wanted was for the logo itself, and Lara will give you the technical term for a logo that is made up of the letters of the words in the name. So I wanted the logo to be Institute for the Advancement of Inquiry. At the same time, I was aware of a tension between augmenting or enhancing human intellect. So what I did was I referred Lara to Doug Engelbart's extraordinary report called Augmentation of Human Intellect. And there's a tension between using technology to augment the intellect as opposed to it leading to the atrophication of human intellect or a stunting in the growth of the human intellect. So the AI in the IAI was meant to represent this tension. So one of the things that we looked at for inspiration was IBM had relatively recently introduced its Plex typeface. And there was an extraordinary section on the IBM website about the philosophy behind the development of that typeface. And two of the things that really stood out to us was that IBM sees itself as a medium between humankind and machine, and that the balance of the natural or organic and the engineered is the backbone of the Plex typeface. So actually you can see there, the first bullet point about IAI is Microsoft's default, well now default Aptos font typeface. And then I've actually shifted for the second points into the IBM Plex Sans typeface. And then while we were scratching around on the IBM design site, we came across what is called the IBM Rebus, which was designed by Paul Rand in 1981. I don't know if anybody remembers this, the IBM Think motto. So they had a whole campaign about IBM Think. And that was where we began to play around a little bit with seeing whether we could create a logo out of the IAI, possibly using some of the inspiration that we got from Paul Rand. So at this point, what I'd like to do is to hand over to Lara, just so that she can talk a little bit about how she interpreted this design brief and executed it. Thank you, Lara.
Hello. So within the broader context of the relationship between humans and their machines, each letter in this monogram logo, the IAI, is distinct, but not separate, reflecting the fact that inquiry cannot be meaningfully separated from digital age tools within a digital environment. This dynamic relationship is reinforced with a color gradient between the letters. It therefore also reflects the tension between augmenting human intelligence and the atrophication of human intellect through the misuse of digital age tools, such as artificial intelligence, threatening to replace the need for inquiry and learning altogether. It can also be interpreted as two figures embracing. This reflects the principle of unity and diversity, which is an ancient phrase expressing harmony and unity between individuals. This relates to the Institute, as it aims to be a forum for collaboration and sharing different ideas amongst educators of all kinds, with a shared intent to advance inquiry for students and their ability to pursue learning on their own, using a wide range of digital age tools to augment human intelligence rather than to diminish it. After designing the logo and reflecting on it, we discovered that the shape of this logo could also signify a drawing compass, which is a precision instrument for technical use, requiring both human mind and body. This seems fitting because it illustrates the purposeful use of human tools to serve human ends. Finally, on our choice of colour, blue has significant symbolism as it represents a critical stage of the fossil inquiry cycle, which is the construct stage. This is where knowledge is transformed into understanding, and students develop their own ideas based on the investigation and the evidence they have found. It seemed fitting, therefore, that construct blue would be the colour for the face of the Institute, knowing that, as Jacques Maritain stated, nothing is more important than the events which occur within that invisible universe which is the mind of a person, the light of which is knowledge.
Thank you. So I'm sure you will agree with me in congratulating Lara on what I think is an absolutely extraordinary visual interpretation of that brief. We have a little bit of tweaking that we still need to do before the logo is finalized, and we'll be sharing it. But that perfectly illustrates for me both what inquiry and what the fossil group and the extension beyond the fossil group to the Institute for the Advancement of Inquiry is all about, is engaging and empowering students to be able to investigate something for themselves and to interpret that in meaningful ways that have a real world outcome and outworking. So that brings me to integrating and hosting the Institute for the Advancement of Inquiry at Blanchelande College. So one of the things that I was particularly keen to do when setting the Institute in motion was for the Institute to be grounded in the reality of a PK to 12 school. Because it is an incredibly complex job, and creating an enabling environment for inquiry is always going to be a more or less difficult task. So we've been very blessed in our move to Blanchelande, and further reasons for that will become apparent when we talk about the heroic inquiry cycle and the redesign or the reboot of that heroic inquiry cycle. But we've been very blessed, in particular with amazing colleagues in Jane Grange, who is the Director of Studies at Blanchelande College, and Alexa Yeoman, who is the new principal of Blanchelande College, but has a very long history with the college, both as a student, but also head of infants, and then acting vice principal, and then principal. So Jane was going to be joining us in person, but she's been unable to make it in today. So my understanding is that Jane is going to be joining us online, and then we'll switch back to here, and Alexa will talk about basing the or hosting the Institute at Blanchelande College. Thank you, Jane.
Hello. I hope that you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, lovely. I'm afraid my 1-year-old is unwell and refusing to leave my side, so she's conducting her own inquiry into sticker placement on my foot at the moment. So apologies if there's any interruptions. So here at Blanchelande College, inquiry is not just a teaching method, but we're trying to make it part of the whole culture of the school. So by integrating the work of the Institute for the Advancement of Inquiry, we're aiming to create a reality-based community of engaged and empowered learners. And as Darryl has noted, this requires purposeful collaboration between classroom teachers and library-based educators, ensuring inquiry is embedded throughout the curriculum. A key feature at the School of Integrated Inquiry into our practical approach is signature work, so structured inquiry projects that equip students with essential skills at key developmental stages. Our youngest learners in Year 1 and 2 begin with inquiries such as why visit Guernsey and who lives on Herm, fostering curiosity and community engagement. By Year 6, students undertake an interdisciplinary inquiry, which spans theology, science, English, art, maths, and ICT, earning them a Crest Bronze Award and empowering them to campaign for causes they care about. Last year, they raised over £570 and even inspired the Lieutenant Governor to plant a tree at our school. And this year, we're strengthening these community connections by inviting local charities to engage directly with students. In the upper years, inquiry deepens. Year 9 signature work, which is now a timetabled subject with Darryl, develops speaking and research skills for their GCSE assessment, while Year 12's Interrobang project introduces them to AI and inquiry-based learning, often leading to the extended project qualification, which Jenny explained earlier. These qualifications challenge students across all abilities, whether they're researching humanitarian issues in Syria or designing a drone. And beyond set projects, inquiry is being embedded across subjects, maths, geography, English, business studies, and beyond, while our new Scholars Society provides the most able students with an inquiry approach to externally focused opportunities, such as national competitions and the Teen Tech Awards. So through these initiatives, we're not only advancing inquiry learning, but we're aiming to foster critical thinking, creativity, community engagement, and empowering students to become independent learners and active citizens directly within the school. We look forward to further collaborative opportunities and outward-looking inquiries that the Institute will hopefully bring us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And I'll pass over to Alexa.
Hello, good morning. So Blanchelande College has educational roots in Guernsey that reach back to the 1100s. This centuries-long commitment to enabling children to realise their full potential as human beings is reflected in our mission and our aims. Drawing nourishment from this rich tradition does not trap us in the past. Rather, an education in this tradition has as its end students who can think in a genuinely free and liberating manner, using the full range of tools at their disposal, which is the hallmark of a contemporary liberal education at Blanchelande. In FOSIL, we have a powerful tool for developing engaged and empowered inquirers, students who are willing and increasingly able to learn for themselves, which is the surest way to equip them for the future. In the FOSIL group, we belong to a growing international community of exceptionally dedicated and thoughtful educators who are using FOSIL to engage and empower students as inquirers, as today clearly demonstrates, and we are proud to play a central role in this. In the Institute for the Advancement of Inquiry, we recognise the outstanding efforts of a wider international community of engaged and empowered inquirers and are honoured to be able to facilitate this vital collaborative work. Thank you.
So just to say one thing on a practical note, does that mean that we've got absolutely everything figured out at Blanchelande College and there's no more work to do? Most certainly not. But what we are creating, as I mentioned when I expressed my debt of gratitude to Richard Blake and Jean Warwick right at the very outset of my journey as a school librarian, is what we are creating is an enabling inquiry environment for both our colleagues, but more importantly for our students. And Jenny, Ruben and I are very grateful to be based here and to be developing this work from here. So that brings us to a more practical aspect of the Institute for the Advancement of Inquiry, is that we actually needed to create an institute that will be based here. And I've been blessed in this by the assistance of my dear friend Mark LePage, who has helped me to set up the institute, and is just going to share something about why Guernsey is significant, a significant place for the for basing the institute beyond it being hosted at Blanchelande College. So, Mark, thank you very much. Yes.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. And it's a real privilege to be here. I met Darryl only some 6 months ago. And as Darryl was talking about his vision for this institute, the hairs really started to stand up at the back of my neck, and I've got a very similar feeling today. So in that particular meeting I had with Darryl, Darryl started talking about, as I said before, his vision. And although we didn't use these words, in many ways what he said echoed the words of Bertrand Russell from a particularly famous and memorable and indeed landmark BBC TV show, Face to Face. And there were two particular quotations that, if you'll indulge me, I will read out. The first one was this: the intellectual thing I would want to say to the people of the future in 1,000 years' time is, when you are studying any matter or considering any philosophy, ask yourself only what are the facts and what is the truth that the facts bear out. Never let yourself be diverted either by what you wish to believe or by what you think would have beneficent social effects if it were believed, but look only and solely at what are the facts. Darryl has already this morning spoken of the Institute's definition of inquiry as a stance of wonder and puzzlement that gives rise to a dynamic process of coming to know and understand the world and ourselves in it. Bertrand Russell went on to say, the moral thing I should wish to say to them is very simple. I should say, love is wise, hatred is foolish. In this world, which is getting more and more closely interconnected, We have to learn to tolerate each other. We have to learn to put up with the fact that some people say things that we don't like, which brings me to the island of Guernsey, in which I grew up. I actually had and was very fortunate to have a liberal education in Guernsey in the 1980s. It sounds a very long time ago now saying that. And after that, and after being to university, I went into the finance industry, which over the last 30 to 40 years has grown quite considerably, and particularly in the 30 years that I have been involved, although of course there is no direct correlation between those two points. And Guernsey is an international finance centre. In many ways, I would describe it like Venice was in the 1500s. We're a centre of facilitation for international trade, and indeed a home for many nationalities. In any one office in this island that is over 60 people, you can fully expect to meet 20 different nationalities. And also, as I've put there, we might be only 70,000 people, but we look after around about £300 billion in sterling at current exchange rates of other people's money, and we look after them responsibly. We are also very, very committed to liberal democracy historically as an island. Perhaps we don't like to talk too much about this, but we were actually supporters of Parliament as opposed to the King at the time of the English Civil War. That's probably not a thing to be too proud of, but it does reflect, I think, our commitment to liberal democracy as an island. We don't at this point in time have political parties, although that might be about to change, but what that's led to is more civic discourse. And I think particularly where we are, and this is a struggle and a journey that I've been on for 20 odd years, as I've looked around the world, and particularly, of course, just across the pond to us in the UK, it's easy to see that civic discourse has become more polarized and less loving. And if there is less love, there is a chance, in my view, that there is less wisdom that is shown. So for me, the need for critical thinking, the need for liberal education with the foundational values of civic discourse present appear never more clear. So I've been very, very pleased. I mean, I feel a little bit inadequate, frankly, given the august presentations that have been given already, well, this morning here in Guernsey, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are. But I've been very, very grateful to play my small part in helping Darryl to set up the Institute in this island.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really do appreciate your support, and we really are looking forward to exciting things that are to come.